Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about games you gotta play, and we're going to be focusing on Rogue Legacy. If it's your first time here, make sure you smash that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications to stay up to date with the latest info and news in the video game world. If you're not familiar with Rogue Legacy, it's a platform/roguelike game that was released in 2013. And it came out for Windows, Linux, OS X, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation Vita. It's out for a ton of consoles, and if you've never played it, now's your chance. The game was developed by a company called Cellar Door Games, which is actually a couple of brothers who founded it, Kenny and Teddy Lee. You might have heard of Cellar Door Games before. They came out with a game called Don't Bleep Your Pants, except it wasn't called Bleep, but you could fill in the family-friendly word that's missing there. And while Don't Bleep Your Pants was a text-based survival horror flash game, Rogue Legacy is a Metroidvania action platformer game that builds on each life you live. It may seem like a fairly basic game on the surface, but the more you play it, the more you'll realize how deep the game actually is. There's a ton of depth in the progression system, and even though you're gonna die a lot.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
It's gonna make you want to come back for more every single time. The goal of Rogue Legacy is to explore a randomly generated dungeon, defeat 4 bosses in each of the 4 unique environments of the dungeon, and then defeat the final boss. Characters have the default ability to jump and slash their sword, along with secondary abilities such as magic attacks which use mana. Whenever a character dies as a result of losing all their hit points, control will transfer over to one of 3 randomly generated heirs, which the player may choose between. That's one thing that really stands out in this game is the sheer amount of randomness with it. The entire dungeon is random every single time you go through it. All the characters you play at are randomized every time you die and start over. Each character carries their unique characteristics and abilities, including generic peculiarities such as color blindness, in which the game is presented in a black and white mode, or ADHD, in which the player moves faster, or dwarfism, in which the player is shorter and can fit into tiny little holes for secrets. The sheer amount of variety from the randomness in the characters creates a unique play experience every time you play it, which more likely than not explains why I keep coming back to play this game. When you die, you lose a lot of the stats that you gained during the playthrough. However, the gold you found while exploring the castle is passed on to the character's heir, and can be used to improve the abilities of successive heirs. Gold can be found by smashing pieces of furniture, opening chests, defeating enemies, and there are also various fairy chests hidden throughout the castle, most of which require the player to complete an objective, such as taking no damage on a given screen or killing all the enemies on a screen in order for that chest to open. Spending gold on the manor, which appears after the heir is chosen, can increase stats such as health and mana, and unlock and upgrade new classes that can be carried by one of the heirs. These include mages, which are more advanced spells, warriors who have higher strength, and assassins who can use various stealth techniques and have an increased likelihood of having critical hits. Gold can be used to unlock the Blacksmith as well. After purchasing upgrades, any unspent gold must be paid to Charon in order to enter the castle. Though upgrades can reduce the amount required to pay, you still gotta give them something on your way into the castle. This forces the player to choose wisely on what they spend their money on, and forces the player into a situation where they can't save up their money through various playthroughs to unlock a big stat upgrade. They actually have to progressively upgrade things, unless you have a really good run through the castle and make a ton of money. And as I mentioned previously, Rogue Legacy was developed by Cellar Door Games, a Toronto-based developer consisting of brothers Kenny and Teddy Lee. This was the brothers' biggest project to date and took 18 months to develop. The game was inspired by titles such as Demon's Souls and Dark Souls, and one of the developers, Teddy, compares the design of the game like Spelunky or The Binding of Isaac, noting that their goal of making this game was to make it more forgiving than some of those other games. The game cost the brothers about $15,000 of their own money to develop it, all of which was earned back within 1 hour of release. Rogue Legacy went on to sell more than 100,000 copies within the first week. Metacritic gives the game a generally favorable score of 85 out of 100 based off of 43 reviews. Mitchell Saltzman of Gamefront describes the game as insanely hard for the unprepared. Philip Collar of Polygon and Mike Spella of GameZone mentioned the short lifespans of their characters. Digital Spy expressed frustration when they first started out. Other reviewers said the game actually encourages these short runs while rewarding the player via a broader progression system. And a small little fun fact, Lady Faye IV, one of the characters in this game, is a playable character in the game Hex Heroes for the Wii U. And the developer is also hinting that that game's coming to the Switch as well. Rogue Legacy is an incredible game, and even if you're not into Metroidvania type games or roguelike type games, give this one a shot, because I didn't feel like I was into roguelike games until I played this one, and it turned me on to the entire genre of games. And while it's not perfect, my final score for this game is a clear 10 out of 10 because of the incredible depth, the music, the gameplay, everything involved with this game. It's so great that I have to give it a 10 out of 10 score. And yes, there's no such thing as a perfect game. 10 out of 10 means it does everything right. Yes, there's going to be some frustrating parts. Yes, there's going to be times where you hate the game. And yes, there's going to be some times where you probably toss the controller.
Why didn't you just go home? That's your home! Are you too good for your home? Answer me!
But you'll always come crawling back to it, I promise. And after you actually beat the game, there's a New Game Plus that adds even more challenge, if you can believe that.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
This game is incredibly hard, but tons of fun. And if you've already played Rogue Legacy and you loved it, well, why are you watching this? Unless you just love Smash JT, and in that case I can't really blame you. But if you've already played Rogue Legacy and you love it, and you played it to death, definitely check out Dead Cells. It's a brand new game that's out on Steam right now for early access, charging about $16.99 for retail price. I bought it first day, and I absolutely love Dead Cells, so check that one out too. And I might do a review on that later on if I get around to it, but Dead Cells is extremely similar to Rogue Legacy. While Rogue Legacy is kind of like a cartoony, violent kind of game, Dead Cells is like a realistic pixelated game, and while completely different graphic styles, the gameplay is extremely similar, and the progression in the game is extremely similar. So if you like Rogue Legacy, you're gonna like Dead Cells. There's really no way to distinguish the two. They're both awesome games. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button, and I'm gonna list a couple of my games you gotta play videos that I've already made. SteamWorld Heist, an incredible game, and Thimbleweed Park. I feel like nobody's even talking about that one. Both of those games were awesome, so definitely check them out. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you later.